Belle da Costa Greene was born in Washington, D.C. as Belle Marion Greener. Although her birth date is sometimes noted as December 13, 1883, her biographer Heidi Artizone gives Greene's birth date as November 26, 1879. Her mother was Genevieve Ida Fleet, a music teacher and member of a well-known African-American family in Washington, D.C. Her father, Richard Theodore Greener, was the first Black student and first Black graduate of Harvard class of 1870. He went on to work as an attorney, professor, and racial justice activist, and served as dean of the Howard University School of Law. Belle da Costa's parents separated around 1896, when she was about 17 years old. It's been stated the reason for Belle's parents' separation was due to her mother wanting to pass for white, whereas Richard was proud to identify as Black. After her parents' separation, the light-skinned Belle, her mother, and her siblings passed as white and changed their surname to Greene to distance themselves from their father. Her mother changed her maiden name to Van Vliet in an effort to assume Dutch ancestry. Belle also made a change to her name, swapping out Marion for da Costa, and claiming a Portuguese background to explain her darker complexion. The changes to her and her family's stated ancestry resulted in further fabrications, including one that led people to believe Belle's had been raised in Virginia. The true nature of her background was further complicated by Belle's claim to be younger than she was. An action biographer, Heidi Artizone, describes as a masquerade in response to a youth-focused society in which single women past a certain age were disdained. Belle began working in the administrative offices at Columbia University's Teachers College sometime in the mid-1890s, where she was introduced to philanthropist and social welfare advocate Grace Hoadley Dodge. Dodge, impressed by Belle's work and social abilities, arranged for Belle to be admitted to the Northfield Seminary for young ladies and funded her education there. Belle attended the seminary for 3 years, likely from 1896 to 1899. In 1900s, Belle attended Amherst College's Summer School of Library Economy, a 6-week program that offered courses in the nascent library science field, including cataloging, indexing, and handwriting. Belle began working at the Princeton University Library in 1902. It was during this time that she was trained in cataloging and reference work and developed a knowledge of rare books. While working at Princeton, she met Junius Spencer Morgan II, who later introduced her to his financier, Uncle J.P. Morgan. Belle began working as J.P. Morgan's librarian in 1905. It's been reported after Belle took the job with Morgan, she likely never spoke to her father again and listed him as deceased on passport applications throughout the 1910s, though he lived until 1922. Belle's first task as a librarian was organizing, cataloging, and shelving Morgan's collection. Ada Thurston, an experienced bibliographer, contributed to the effort as Belle's assistant. Belle quickly became a gatekeeper for J.P. Morgan and those looking to seek his benefit for artistic pursuit. In 1906, Edward Curtis sought her approval for his epic project to preserve Native American life. After a favorable reception to his introductory letter and a personal discussion, he was granted access to J.P. Morgan himself through Belle. Over many years of correspondence, Belle continued to support his masterwork, The North American Indian, 20 volumes through funding from J.P. Morgan. By 1908, Belle had begun representing Morgan abroad. Trusted for her expertise, Belle was an expert in illuminated manuscripts. As well as her prowess in bargaining with dealers, Belle spent millions of dollars buying and selling rare manuscripts, books, and art for Morgan. She told Morgan, who was willing to pay any price for important works, that her goal was to make his library preeminent, especially for incunabula, manuscripts, bindings, and the classics. In a 1912 profile of Belle, the New York Times referred to her force of persuasion and intelligence, and recounted her pre-auction purchase of 17 highly sought-after William Caxton books on behalf of the Morgan Library. Over the years, there were rumors of Belle's and Morgan's relationships, stating it was romantic. Morgan's biographer Gene Strauss, an American biographer, offered an example of the relationship between Morgan and Belle. Morgan hated paying customs duties, especially on art objects, and like countless of other travelers before and since, evaded them whenever possible. He quickly enlisted Belle as an ally in tax evasion. One year she managed, by artfully letting the customs agents find several dutiable items of hers in her luggage, to draw their attention away from a painting, 3 bronzes, and a very expensive watch he had asked her to buy in London. "When I landed at the library with all of JP's treasures," she reported to a friend, "well, he and I did a war dance and laughed in great glee." After Morgan died in 1913, Belle continued working for his son and daughter-in-law, J.P. Morgan Jr. Belle never married. Her mother, Genevieve, lived with her for decades, and Greene played an active role in raising her nephew, Robert Mackenzie Leveridge, who had been born in her home. In 1913, J.P. Morgan left Greene $50,000, equivalent to $1,500,000 in 2023, in his will. She was asked if she was Morgan's mistress. Belle replied, "We tried." Was her comment a joke or a cryptic admission on the seriousness of her relationship with Morgan? Morgan was 32 years her senior and married, but it was noted that he was highly fond of her publicly. It should also be noted the average wage of an American in 1913 was $750 a year. Belle made $10,000 to $25,000 a year, which is equivalent to over $700,000 a year in 2025. Though she was coy about the details of her relationship with Morgan, she had a lasting romantic relationship with the Renaissance Italian art expert Bernard Berenson, whom she met in 1909. In 1924, she was named director of the Pierpont Morgan Library, following the transition of Morgan's formerly personal collection to a public institution. While working there, Belle da Costa identified works produced by the Spanish forger. She retired from the position in 1948. Belle died of cancer on May 10, 1950, at St. Luke's Hospital in New York City. Belle destroyed her personal papers before her death, but records held by others remain, including letters she wrote to Berenson. Her professional correspondence is archived in the collections of the Morgan Library and Museum. When she died in 1950, the New York Times referred to her as one of the best-known librarians in the country,